Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Kyuuyaku Megami Tensei 2. Last time we reached Ginza and fully explored its commercial district so that we could grind up a bit and shop for some better equipment and get some more levels so that we were fully prepared for the Ginza underground labyrinth to come. Apparently there's a basilisk that's causing the community some distress and we promised a monk that we will go take care of it. So this part of the Ginza underground has multiple different entrances. I highly suggest you take this easternmost one so that you can peek into this room and talk to this guy who is drawn in a way that it looks like he's about to like tip over any minute. I don't know why his legs were so slanted like that when they decided to draw him, but regardless, he's going to give us this business card. It'll let us poke our noses into a new area that will show up towards the end of this episode, and you don't really have to do this, but you might as well and get some, more context for the Ginza area. We have another Pazuzu tile here, which he's not going to be too happy since we essentially betrayed him and our pal, who I'm already blanking on his name. Was it? Oh yeah, Ryu. I forgot about him already. Goodness. Yeah, we're gonna have a few dark tiles here, but the layout here is it's a long area, but I wouldn't say it's essentially that complex. There's a few different dead ends, and it is a little labyrinthian, but if you prepared like I did, it's not going to be too tricky. Might get turned around a little bit, but slowly but surely you can wiggle your way through. And again, I know I discussed this already, but sometimes you'll run into enemies that will just constantly heal themselves, and it's just not worth the energy to fight them for an extended period of time. So, like, I think I tried to auto that mob out, and it just was not working, and I ended up almost dying for it. Well, maybe not almost dying, but wasted a decent chunk of my hit points, so kind of annoying. A lot of treasure chests here, too, which is nice. You can go looting a bit. And it also, makes dead ends a bit more appealing. That's kind of the fun thing with these games is, sometimes you end up going away and you're like, damn, this wasn't the right way, but at least there's a treasure chest with some loot or something fun inside of it, so my troubles weren't for nothing. Really, I'm really curious about how, when designing these types of games, too, they decide where to put the, what dead ends should have treasures at the end and what dead ends should just be dead ends and waste of times to frustrate the player. I'm sure that that's quite the decision-making process, because you don't want every single part of the map to have treasure or good stuff. Part of the stress of being in the dungeon is sometimes you can get a little bit lost. But I'm sure that's really difficult to make well-balanced and fun, so that you're not completely frustrating your players, but you're also not, giving them nothing when they get lost or they try to explore off the beaten path a bit. Speaking of treasure chests, it's actually pretty interesting. When I was doing my research for this game, I was able to look a bit at... I was just looking at some, Japanese write-ups about Kyuuyaku, especially because these games came out for, I believe, the Wii Virtual Console. I don't know if they ever came out for the Wii U Virtual Console. Obviously, this is only in Japan, but you can find a few reviews online. I would link to them, but it's been months at this point. I don't even know if I'd be able to track them down anymore. But you can find reviews of the Virtual Console re-release of this game, and they were really interesting to read. One thing I learned was that apparently, at least the initial printing of this, maybe it was every printing of this, had a weird glitch where, towards the end of Kyuuyaku Megami Tensei 1, sometimes players would run into chests and they were completely empty. And the reason for that was that it was programmed in such a way so that some chests in the game, from the beginning of the game and the end of the game, actually shared an event flag, so that when that triggered early on in the game, players would get to chests later on. Oh, and also we're at the Basilisk boss fight. But yeah, as I was saying, this boss fight isn't too much, so I'm just going to continue with the story. So, you would go through the entire game and you'd get to the final dungeon and people would be like, why the fuck are so many of these chests empty? And it's because of this weird programming glitch that I believe was either it was fixed in a updated version of the game, or was fixed during the translation patch process. I'm not sure which way, but that was really interesting to read up on. So yeah, took care of the basilisk. It really wasn't that difficult. We could continue progressing, but if you remember, that monk said he would give us something pretty cool if we went back. So we were going to make our way back and go ahead and chat with him. But yeah, I just wanted to give you that little bit of insight. I just actually, too, while I'm here, and since we're making our way back and I decided not to cut this out for whatever reason, I figured it would probably just be worth it to show what it's like to make the trip all the way back. But yeah, one thing I noticed that I thought was really interesting too was there were quite a few people, and I kind of get this, that were really happy with Kyuuyaku Megami Tensei 2, but were a little disappointed with how they decided to remake Kyuuyaku Megami Tensei 1, mostly because they just made the game easier, and a lot of them were like, I understand why the game was made this way, and it's technically a better game for it, but it's not as hard anymore, and I kind of miss the original balancing in the original version, and I don't agree with that game's case. I think the original version of Megami Tensei is abysmal compared to Kyuuyaku Megami Tensei 1, but, I'm that way about certain other games and certain other re-releases, sometimes I'm like, why did they have to change that, It was perfect like it was before, damn it, whereas, people who are maybe less familiar or didn't grow up with it or whatever are like, what the fuck is this boomer talking about, it's fine. Anyways, so we got our gift from that monk, and now we're gonna teleport back. And we are gonna want to make our way back to the demon world and go check out that bizarre podium that we encountered with the sword and demon stuck within it. And I remembered why I wanted to show off that trip to the Ginza surface, by the way. Part of the reason was because we ran into, I believe it was Tsuchigumo was the name of the demon. It's the spider-looking thing. But we are going to want to try and recruit one of those later on because we're going to want one for a fusion that we're going to want to do. So I tried to recruit it, and I could not because we have a full party right now, and I figured now would be a good time to visit the Cathedral of Shadows, and we can part ways with some of our pals here. Now, it's not the most optimal thing in the world, but if you run into a situation where you just can't seem to get any decent fusion results, or, sometimes you try fusing stuff, but you already have the demons, like this situation with Buckaboo here. We already have a Buckaboo, so we can't fuse the second one. It's very possible that you may run into a situation where the best way to free up a party member slot is to just go into the comp and abandon a demon. Kind of unfortunate and should probably be left as a last resort if you can help it, just because it's not the most optimal thing in the world, but, sometimes you just need to free up a slot so that you can recruit a better demon from the overworld map or whatever. Could get an elf on the shelf. Don't want that thing either. Running a little low on options here. Now that's what I'm talking about. Weird pinkish flame slime, flamey slime, which is a very, very goofy name. It is Miragi. I like how its dorky little animation stops too when it's when it's done being fused. Unfortunately, the triple fusion does not result in anything fancy. Could get a unicorn by fusing these two together, but don't exactly want that either. Yeah, Flamey Slime opens up a lot of fun different fusion results, but nothing that really speaks to me right now. There's Eligor, but we already have an Eligor, so nothing too fancy to really speak of. Let's go ahead and summon our new demonic friend. Oh, and Bugaboo. I keep wanting to say Bugaboo because I believe that's what it's called in... Well, that's what a demon is called in Strange Journey. Oh yeah, well at least according to the Megami Tensei wiki, they're supposed to be referencing the same demon, they just translated it differently between this fan translation and the official localization in Strange Journey, so... Unfortunately, Bugaboo is not plot relevant in Kyuuyaku Megami Tensei 2, just another roster demon. That's always a funny thing in the Megami Tensei games, where in some games, some demons that are really important in others are just kind of around hanging out as generic enemies. Like, there's a few games where you just kind of run into Metatron out in the wild, and it's like, you should probably be more important than this, but whatever. So now that we have the gift that the monk gave us, we can now free Naga from this Serpent Blade, and now we have not only a really fucking cool new sword for Takuma, we also have a new demonic party member, so that was also part of the reason I wanted to free up space in my party. So yeah, let's get rid of Flamey Slime. We just fused, yeah, I know, but we really just needed to get some demons out of the way. So we just got a level 30 demon essentially for free, which is awesome. Gonna cost a little bit of Maka to summon and quite a bit of Magnetite to walk around with out in the dungeons and whatnot, but it's gonna be more than worth it. Like I said, this game gives you plenty of demons for free. And even better, at least in most situations, I'm not entirely sure if it's the case with Naga too, but most of the time when you run into a situation where you can, where you're given a demon, if your party is full, they'll say, "Oh, your party's full. Come back later when you have a slot open for me." And it's not like you lose out on the opportunity permanently. I know at least that's the case with certain demons. I'm sure it's probably the case for Naga as well, but yeah. It's gonna be smooth sailing from here between these the new equipment and the new demon for sure. So gonna help us coast along through the remainder of that underground labyrinth, because there's still plenty more to explore past the basilisk that we defeated. You can see the power of the Serpent Blade. This is a multi-hit blade that does a shit ton of damage. It's going to completely demolish enemies for a good long while here. Yeah, after you beat that basilisk, you're really gonna want to double back around and get the item from the monk so that you can free Naga. Highly, highly recommended. Heal up the party. Funds are still a little bit low for my liking for the Maka. Started the episode with not a lot, and yeah, had to blow through a good chunk of that just to summon it. I'm also this is one this is one of the few times in the game I play around with the formations. Technically, the people in the first, I believe it's the first 3 slots are more likely to be hit than the party members in the last 3 slots. Most of the time I don't really pay attention to it, which is kind of weird for me because, you know, I'm the guy who's always about optimizing everything and all that, but I don't know. I like to have my human party members listed at number 1 and number 2, even though it's probably not the best idea to have Asuka that far up front as a kind of fragile magic user, but whatever. Most of the time, I feel like it doesn't really matter that much, but I figured, we got a big, giant-ass tanky demon that has almost double the main character's HP. Might as well put it up front in the number 1 slot. So yeah, exploring the rest of this dungeon is definitely going to be a breeze. And of course, we're just basically covering ground we've already covered before, making our way back to the Basilisk's chamber. I believe you even get a fun little message when you reach it. Another Nosferatu. I alluded to this last time, but since we've kind of passed the moment, I believe it's a good time for me to elaborate. I definitely think that Ginza is going to be a roadblock for plenty of new players, but trust me when I say this game gets exponentially easier after you beat that Basilisk, who, again, like I said, really isn't that tough of a boss. But as soon as you do that, and you can get Naga, and you can get that really cool Serpent Blade, we're going to steamroll through the rest of, or at least not the rest of this game, that'd be ridiculous, but we're going to steamroll through the immediate obstacles to come. The game gets a lot easier past this point. Without spoiling too much, there'll be a time, a few episodes from now, we're going to run into a dungeon that's a little tricky, but for the most part, we're going to have a fairly easy time for the immediate future, at least, so that's kind of good. So now that we've caught back up to where the Basilisk was, you're going to continue going through this labyrinth, and if you explore around a bit, which if you're playing along with me, I highly encourage that. Maybe stop at this episode and explore around a bit for yourself, kind of see what's lying around, and kind of discover the world and see it through your own lens, and don't just do exactly what I'm doing here and kind of beelining for all the cool shit right away. I highly encourage you to kind of make this adventure your own personal journey, not just something to follow the video guide with. I think it's a little more fun that way. I also really like this enemy design. I think it's really cool. But as I was saying, after you reach the Basilisk room and you go beyond that, it becomes very obvious if you explore around a bit that this is where the dungeon kind of forks off into two separate paths. So I'm going to be taking the one that we're going to most likely want to go down first. You could go the other way and poke around and see what's up there. We're going to have to go back around that other way anyways, so, but I'm just trying to make this as concise of a playthrough as possible, and we're going to continue going to the center of the spiral, and eventually we're going to meet up with the Lord of Demons, Lucifer, who's just frozen down here, I guess. A little unexpected. I honestly lost my shit when I first got down here the first time playing through this game and discovered that. It's so out of left field. I really love it. It's very goofy. Just a devil popsicle. Just in the middle of this random room after a kind of mediocre boss fight. It's so silly. I love it. It's very easy to miss, too, You could easily go the other way and just not run into that. Hey, remember that business card we got earlier? That's what this is for. Talk to this guy, and he's going to take that business card from us, but don't worry, you can always go back to the NPC who gave you the card, and he is going to give you another one as soon as you lose the one he just gave you. He has an infinite supply of them to give. See, even Suzuki himself. I'm assuming this is President Suzuki. It's Suzuki's company, but, I don't know if that's actually this guy's name or not. I'm just assuming. Gee, I sure hope that Lucifer doesn't wake up from his icy prison. Kind of respect the callback to the Divine Comedy, honestly. I think it would have been a little bit cooler if he was, much like in Dante's Inferno, kind of stuck halfway in the ice and beating his wings and kicking up the cold air that continues to freeze him, and kind of trapped in that perpetual misery of freezing himself over and over again and trapped within his own rage sort of thing. But no, they just decided to go for a completely frozen Lucifer, which is also, I guess, kind of silly in its own right, too. President Suzuki there. I'm just going to keep calling him that. I'm sure that's his probable actual name. he referenced something that we've already seen discussed through NPCs in the bars and stuff like that, but he referenced the fact that there's a demonic civil war happening, which is a element of the setting I actually like a lot, especially coming to this game after playing a lot of more recent Megami Tensei games where it's always a demons versus angels type thing. But I kind of like the fact that it's a demon civil war, and Pazuzu just happens to have kind of given up on the whole Lucifer thing and is worshiping God now instead, just because I feel like that would probably happen after the apocalypse and the whole demons take over thing. You know, they'd be fighting over turf and territory and stuff like that. You know, they kind of dive into that in Shin Megami Tensei 4, actually, when you... spoilers for that game, but you end up visiting alternate realities and stuff like that, and the chaotic version of Tokyo is a nightmare. But yeah, I really like that Pazuzu isn't like Michael or something in this game. It's another demon who just happens to be serving God, and he's having a civil war with Baal. I just think it's a little more unique, especially after playing so many of the other Megami Tensei games and just kind of getting used to the archetypal heaven versus hell thing that they kind of have with the law versus chaos stuff going on. But that's going to be it for this episode. I hope you will all join me for next time. Have a good night, everyone.